All right, welcome to my 12th ever podcast and my 9th ever Hot Topic podcast. So this is a backyard podcast. I just put out lunch. We are dog sitting. Not really dog sitting. My sister and her husband are having work done on their house, and so one of them is working over here, my brother-in-law, and they brought the dogs so the dogs don't make a lot of noise and they don't make a lot of pain for the workers at the house today. And so if you hear dogs barking, it's probably them. The topic of this podcast is classroom solutions. So classroom solution or solutions to troublemaker students, and specifically it's classroom solutions to late arrival students. And so that's the topic of this podcast. One other, not really related, but related to my life is I took a job today watering plants, and so the money I make from that I'm gonna channel towards my Ireland heritage travel trip. So that's exciting. Yeah. So it's nice to have a little bit of work and income that I can channel towards Ireland. So I gotta do it first, so tomorrow's a walkthrough for that. Okay, so that was my not unrelated but life related note. And so back to the classroom thing. So I've both implemented this solution myself and I have experienced it as a student in two different contexts. The first context I experienced it was in a world religions class. I don't remember if it was the theology department or not. And then the second time I encountered this, and it was a version of it, but not it. I guess my solution is a little bit different than the second one, but the second one kind of provides like a base for this kind of solution to late arrival students. And the second kind of context was it was the business school or the international business school. I don't remember which, but it was the Department of Travel Industry and Management, and I was taking a course on food and world cultures, and that was the second class. I've taken a number of business classes. This is a slight digression. Some people want to know this. So I've taken on a university level, undergraduate level, I've taken courses in marketing. I've taken a course in marketing. I've taken a course in human resource management, and that was part of a environmental science and resource management curriculum, and it was like sustainable human resource management kind of thing. And then I've also taken this travel industry and management course for international business focused on world cultures. In high school, I took an accounting class. So that's kind of my formal high school and college level coursework, at least 4 of the courses I've taken in the business world, or in business. And so that's a little bit about that. I'm gonna talk through, moving to the next thing is, what is the solution? And then I'm gonna break down the solution, and then, or a solution. Other people might have problems with this, or that might not be feasible for them, but I'm gonna break down the solution I came up with, and then the two kind of contexts I've encountered it, or something like it. And so the solution for students who are late arrivals, and why does this matter? Okay, no. So the solution for students who are late arrivals is evaluating your course on the class, the students on participation. Okay, you set a participation grade, but what happens if you have trouble students who get a doctor's note and purposefully take advantage of the system, and they come to class with 5 minutes left, and then you have to give them full participation points when in reality they're a slacker, and let's be honest, 80% of life is just showing up. So by life standards, this person just failed your class, kind of thing. But there's a so I've encountered people who've become really frustrated with that, because the student won't be putting in the time literally compared to students who are there and who are showing up and that kind of thing. And so how do you address it? And so the answer isn't singling this person out. The answer, at least as I've implemented it, is you hold participation the same. You keep your participation grades. If they get a doctor's note or whatever about it's okay if they miss class, or it's okay if they show up with only 5 minutes of an hour-long class left, fine, that it only hurts them in the long run. And so what is the solution? The solution is to set that base level standard of evaluation and then reward those who come to the class. And how do you do that? The way to do that is, there are kind of two ways to do that. And the first way is a magical way, not a magical way, but I experienced it and I thought it was great, quite honestly. And it was, the teacher would give pop quizzes on the topics covered in the lecture. So 20 minutes into class, 30 minutes into class, 40 minutes into class, this person who you might have a problem with, who arrives 5 minutes before the end of class, they're not there. So this is rewarding the people who are present, physically present in the classroom. And what this one teacher did, and I've actually experienced this implemented, is they'll give pop quizzes on the material covered. So it rewards students who are paying attention in class. And what it was they gave pop quizzes, and they'd say, okay, put your notes away. And sometimes it would be, you can keep your notes out. And it would be, they'd ask a question and then you'd have to come up with the answer, and it would be based on what was covered in lecture. And I absolutely loved that format as a student, because I was like, well, it encourages me to pay attention. Or they might actually do it on the course readings, like for the lecture for the day. So it might not be anything that was covered in the lecture, but it was part of the preparation materials that you were supposed to have read before class. Now, this is where this actually works in implementation, is how, let's say the pop quiz was worth 3 points and you got 1 point. You got 1 point of bonus added to your grade. So it was no matter what, you were I as a student was incentivized to even just take a wild guess, because if you got 33% right or 100% right, it would be added to your grade. So it rewards students who are, 1, physically present, 2, do the preparation for the class, or 3, pay attention in class. And that student, and let's say you have 1 student who's a trouble student and only 1 student. That person doesn't show up, isn't there for this pop quiz, they get 0 points added to their grade. And they can't protest it because it's all bonus for participation. So it's not the standard. And so that's where this trouble person, this one and the other one I've experienced, people who are those trouble students, this kind of implementation will actually result in a lowering between 1 and 2 letter grades. So that trouble student who might have gotten an A in the course, who isn't actually physically present, isn't paying attention, isn't participating, can't do any of that because they're not there, period, that can lead to them their grade being a C instead of that A. And that is fair, right? 80% of life is just showing up. So in reality, they should have gotten an F, but it'll come back around to them anyway. So a C is being grace and giving them grace. So it's being nice as a teacher. And the other way is not pop quizzes, but to have some form of bonus participation. And what I mean by this, we had this a little bit in physics at the University of Washington. And I've also experienced this one in travel industry and management, is kind of, you'll sign a sign-in sheet or have an iClicker question or something like that. It's just participate, so you sign in or you answer a question and your answer doesn't matter. So as long as you participate, you get a bonus point. And if the class is curved, it means that these people who are purposefully slacking off and abusing the system do have that reflected in their final grade. Now, okay, these are trouble students, so they'll go through a lot of effort to make an instructor's life hell. So how do you address that? Well, if if this person decides they want to tamper with this effective system, the way to do that is to you do not single them out, you keep a log. So I've done this, keep a handwritten log for people who arrive late, so you know who's there. And if you want to be really detailed, write down the time that they arrived. And then if you give a quiz or a bonus question or something like that, you write down the time that you do that. If you want to, you can even take a picture of these things. And that way, if it came back even on like legal grounds, like, oh no, squirrely, it's okay, don't eat too fast. If it comes back around on a legal level, you have photo and record documentation that they are lying and trying to get away with something that they didn't show up, right? They're trying to mess with it and say they were there when they really weren't, and you can prove that. A lot of classrooms these days are under video surveillance, and so you can actually get that photo or that video documentation of the student arriving 5 minutes before the end of the class and you handing out your test. It's very feasible depending on the school you're at. Like at least one of the schools I've taught at, like on a university level, there were video cameras and that kind of thing, and so you can actually implement this and provide documentation that they're lying if they take it that far. Typically these kind of trouble students will at least threaten that level of documentation, so it's good to keep that level of documentation. If they threat with it, respond with actual documentation, and if they cause you stress and stuff like that, keeping in mind your health, it might be good to pursue legal actions and they get an F instead of a C. Like so it can go both ways. Well, it can't really in that one. And that one is a very enforceable and a very strong way to counter the troublemaker students. I have experienced it. I think some people go, well, what about my discipline? Like, it's science, how do you do that? And it's, well, you have people talk through something, that kind of thing. And this is effective too if the troublemaker student never shows up in class and you have a snapshot of the entire class there and their name shows up on a sign-in sheet or something like that, then you can easily be like, no, you were not in the classroom, we cannot give you this bonus point, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, I'm just gonna go on to my experiences. So I talked a little bit about in travel industry and management, they passed around a sheet, and why are these, and in physics we had bonus kind of clicker points, and why do both of these methods, and I should say the travel industry management and the world religions, both those classes I took at the University of Hawai at Mānoa, and then the iClicker in physics was at the University of Washington, where I've experienced these implementations. And why are they effective teaching mechanisms? First off, it rewards those who care enough to show up to class. Like, some people just don't care. They're slackers. They're gonna be slackers in life. They're slackers in class. It's a reflection of their work ethic or lack thereof. And then, so that's one. And then, why does it work? So I'm going to start with the sign-in sheet. So this is specifically, well, I didn't miss a single physics lecture at the University of Washington, and I took it for a year. Like a full year. There was quarter system, so physics 1, 2, and 3 were in a year. So I didn't miss, and like, even there was one where I got out of math class late and I was like, I'm not gonna make it on time, and I was like, I don't care, push myself and get there late. Like, it's better to be there late than to never show up. And I think I actually made it on time, or I made it like exactly as class started. And so that was, worst case, I arrived like 2 or 3 minutes late, but I don't think they had done the iClickers yet. And so it was like, it motivated me to show up to class. So there's a super basic. Let's talk about worst case scenarios. So these people who try to abuse the system, they can be actual abusers in life too. And I have been raped. And when I was taking this food and world cultures class in the travel industry and management department, I was dealing with severe PTSD and had troubles just getting out of bed in the morning and stuff like that. So I didn't always come to class. And because this teacher had this sign-in sheet implementation where you get credit by being present and signing in for the day, I had to seek like help to get that doctor's note to be like, I can't make it. Like, I'm struggling, just just not to be suicidal here, like just to keep going on. And so because of this implementation of this sign-in sheet, I actually sought out professional psychological and eventually psychiatric help, and it helped me in my recovery process, in healing, starting kind of the healing process from what had happened to me. So on like a kind of life-saving level, yes, it spurs even those of us at the lowest levels of just like struggling and fighting to want to be alive. It helps, speaking from experience, lifts us up. It helped lift me up. And then in the world religions class, so that I took before the travel industry and management class, and there's a squirrel looking this way. It's Frankie. Come on, Frankie! Come on, Frankie! Come on, Frankie! There's Frankie, you guys! The world religions class, it was after my rape, but before I got help. And that one was the class that implemented the pop quizzes approach. And I will say, like, I was like, the topic of world religions was interesting. It was a diversification class. I could have taken something different, but I chose to push myself and take something that I at least thought, I still think that everybody should be required to take a world religions class just to be like, have some understanding of what different world religions exist. A lot of people don't ever do that. And so I thought it was a really, really great just approach as a student and a teacher. So I started teaching. I've taught in a bunch of different contexts, and that one, the pop quiz one, it actually, like, I was still dealing with the PTSD at that point, but not yet brave enough to seek out help. And when I did come to class, I didn't always come to class, but when I did come to class, it was like, it forced me to take notes. And yes, it might be, you're going to take this quiz without the notes, but it encouraged me to guess. And sometimes that's the hardest part as a student, is just being like, taking that initial guess. And like, it's okay to get it wrong, because the lowest you're going to get is 0 points, which you would have got if you didn't show up anyway. So you might as well guess, because hey, you might get one thing right and get a little bit of bonus. And so it actually helped me kind of break out of my shell of just guessing on things and being like, I have no idea what the answer is to this question, but I'm gonna guess. And that sometimes can be terrifying. And then when I guess and I get it wrong, then I'm like, well, what was the right answer? So there's this curiosity component that it impels in me or spurs in me, and it actually has this really great positive feedback loop where I'm like paying even more attention than I would have without the quiz and getting it wrong, because I'm like, well, what was the right answer? What did I miss in this lecture, or what did I miss in the readings and stuff like that? And so I thought they were all really excellent mechanisms of enforcing. So I covered 3 different enforcement. So I covered pop quizzes, and I'm going to say theology because it was a world religions class. And so that's pop quizzes. Then in travel industry and management, it was attendance sign-in sheet. And then it was for physics, it was iClicker questions. And the iClicker questions would be testing concepts already covered in the pre-lecture materials. So it might be a reading. They also had like online pre-lectures that you'd have to watch and that kind of thing. So a test on that, or if they'd covered a concept or there was a demo. So in physics, in the sciences, there's usually demos to make learning more interactive. Demo is short for demonstration. And so it might test you, okay, I just showed you this really cool thing with like a barrel imploding, but what actually happened? And then there might be an iClicker, and you'd get to talk to people around you, that kind of thing. So you get to actually work through it as the lectures went without getting, you might still feel left behind, but at least attempts to keep you engaged with what's going on in the class. And so that's the solution, is not kind of hitting people, not singling out trouble students or late arrivals, but building up everybody who's present, because in rewarding that behavior, because in life showing up is very important, and it kind of positively reinforces those who do make the effort and do have the work ethic to show up to class and participate. And that's Starry Man.